So before you get into the interview process, when you're trying to look for jobs to get into the games industry, the first thing I always recommend people do is start researching your desired profession. A lot of times people are like, I want to get into games, I don't care what I do. Those people make me super nervous. I know they're like, oh, it's cool, like I'll just get in there and then I'll find something that can fit, but I would always suggest just start researching. There's plenty of books on Amazon. I found this games career guide, that one up there, on there. It's just a good thing to just check out, read through, figure out like, oh, I'm really into programming. Maybe that's more where I should be heading versus like other things, I guess. There's
Specialization is very, very important. The industry is really, really compartmentalized at this point. So we have an animation department and a character modeling department and an environmental modeling department and level design. So all those things are very compartmentalized. And we're looking for somebody to solve those individual problems. So it's very important that you find the thing that you want to do and focus on that one thing. If you're not sure which things you want to do, we are going to not be sure whether you really want to do the thing that we want you to do, and that's too confusing.
Yeah, but I will say that's also going to be very dependent upon the company that you work for. If you're going into a more of an indie studio, if you're starting something on your own where it's going to be like a 4 or 5 person shop, a jack of all trades is stellar in those situations because then you can kind of help out in more areas. You get a chance to experience a lot of different things and figure out where you want to grow into. Where I would say a company where you're hitting probably like 40-ish people and above, that's going to be a little bit more where you get those kind of more specialized positions.
Right, that's a good point. I used to do all the things. Now I do one thing.
Yeah, and especially as companies grow, you can kind of see that as well. I know when Hi-Rez was much smaller, it was more that vibe, and as they gotten larger and larger, people kind of have diverged into different specialties. Colleges and universities, great place to learn about any of these kind of things. SCAD, Georgia Tech locally, Southern Polytech are all great schools for just kind of getting a good feel for what the games industry might be like. And then I've added some TV shows because I think they're funny. Silicon Valley, I think, is a very good feel for our culture, surprisingly yet. Or not, okay.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Personally, as far as the school thing is concerned, the schools don't really like me to say this, but there's a lot of resources that are not school-oriented. They're super, super valuable. You can get on Polycount, and you can get people that are industry professionals to look at your stuff and tell you what they think about it. You can get all the tools pretty much for free. You can get, you need to be a student of some kind so you can get free student versions of software. But, you can get all the modeling programs now pretty much for free as long as you're not making money using them. You can get UDK, Unity, any of those things you can just get for free and start getting involved in learning how to do stuff. And there's tons of resources out there for getting other people to look at the things you produce and review them for you.
Next up, when you're applying for jobs, always read the job description. I know this seems very intuitive, but it also is very helpful in trying to figure out what you want to do, because you're going to read a job description for maybe like a gameplay programmer and realize, I totally want to specialize in systems, this sounds awful. So it's kind of nice to gear you in those regards. It's also good to get a really good understanding of what people are looking for. So when we're looking for like a mid-level programmer, if we're expecting someone with X amount of years of experience in like C++, you can start kind of getting prepared for that earlier, just knowing what people are going to be looking for at that time.
And all the job descriptions for those different positions will be similar from place to place, and they'll all have the similar requirements in terms of things that you need to know, platforms that you need to be experienced with, et cetera, and so on. So, even if you don't get the job, you can look at the requirements that were there and find the things that you couldn't fulfill, and you can learn how to do whatever that is to kind of round out your, abilities.
Yeah, kind of work towards it. Next, create unique cover letters and objectives on your resume when you're applying for jobs. I've got this generic cover letter once, which pretty much just says, hey, I really want to work at Monolith, which I've never worked at Monolith, so I thought that was kind of interesting. It's pretty, there's nothing special about it. There's nothing saying like, hey, this is my first job in the games industry. I'm super passionate. I've played games since I was like 2, and I want to continue on with that. It's kind of like, well, this seems like a kind of a ho-hum person. Like, I don't know if they know any of the games that we make. I don't even know if they play them. So it's really just not kind of selling yourself to those extent. It's also important for people when they're switching industries. So like, let's say if you worked in web design for years upon years and you're going into the games industry, trying to sell yourself in those regards of why you're going to be making that move.
Yeah, and in that case, being familiar with the products that the company that you're applying for produces is super smart. and we kind of expect that. If you haven't played the game that we make and you're applying to work on the game, that's weird. It just doesn't seem like you really are all that excited about it if you haven't at least gotten a hold of it and tried it out enough to be able to have a discussion about it, and to understand what it is and what kind of things it contains. So that's always advisable.
Yeah. And then you kind of see this example right here, and I know it's small in a lot of words, but it's kind of just like a better example of like, hey, I met people at PAX, I checked out the company's website, I can really tell that they're into X, Y, and Z. So it's kind of like at least showing like how they tie to the company and the position. And it's also why I consider myself to be a rock star, which I think is kind of, it's good because that's where they're really definitely showing where they're selling themselves, how they think they're at least applicable to the role that you have open. So, cool. Next, proofread your work. Also kind of usually something that people know, but I've also gotten this cover letter as well, and I was like, okay, I'm a senior. Maybe they might not be an English speaker, but as it goes on, it just kind of gets worse and worse. So either read it out loud, have somebody else read it, mom, dad, brother, sister, it doesn't matter. Just always do that before you send it in, especially if you're in QA.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. I at least have an interesting job.
Have your friend that's got a literature degree or something, like read your stuff,
Yeah.
and then they can make sure that it's not just markedly terrible.
This is another kind of example of just a bad resume. They were trying to attain a position at the Gap Corporation. Again, at this time I was at CCP, so it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little weird. And then it's talking about them actually working at the Gap, so I'm assuming they got the job at the Gap, worked there, and then just used the same resume and just kind of added stuff in there. Which again, it was their Pilates instructor experience. I forgot what they're applying for, but either way, like just have someone look over your resume, everyone, anybody, teachers, friends.
And including jobs that are like really, really have nothing to do with anything that you're applying for. I mean, it's good for the people to tell that you've had a job before, but yeah, talking about your Pilates instructor experience or like those years that you worked at Chili's, like it has like a weird smell of desperation about it. It's better that you don't put it on there. And if we ask you, have you ever had a job before? You can say, I did this and this and this. But things that are having a long list of things that are completely inapplicable is just weird. So don't do that.
And then I have this as an example of a kind of a good resume. So one, all the contact information is easily to read. You know all the companies that they worked for, all the dates of employment. Everything's in chronological order from oldest employment to newest employment. So just having like a nice, clear, easy to read resume is just, it's key.
Don't use weird fonts.
Okay. I'm with you on that. Do the work yourself. I got this lovely letter from a father who his loving daughter had graduated from school and had not gotten a job yet, of which it's uncomfortable. It's awesome that people's parents really care about them, but you want to apply for a job yourself. I actually felt slightly threatened by this one as well, because at the end he's like, yeah, I'm also a police officer and I'm in your guys' building, which is not comfortable. These are jokes, people. There we go. Thank you.
And we're like, if she can't apply for the job herself, is she going to be able to do the job? That's confusing.
Yeah, that's the mindset at least.
Wow, that's...
Yeah. Next big thing before you actually start submitting your resume, make sure you update your portfolio. I've gotten many links like this, which is then me either going back to the candidate to say, hey, do you actually have a portfolio? Can you please either update it, or I'll just go ahead and decline them at that point. Just if you can't take the time to make sure it's up and running before you submit it, just don't submit it then, I guess. These are the links that you should be sending. I guess these are two examples I thought were good, just because it kind of shows a breakdown of at least these candidates' process for environment art pieces. I also have one I like for character art. So just showing variety. From my understanding, you want to at least simplify it to your best pieces. Don't include all the pieces that you have. Pick out the ones that you feel like are your best show pieces. You might speak more to that.
Well, and it's also kind of, so you if you have a large body of work, or you do different things, specialize it towards the field you're trying to get in, and then have the other stuff accessible so that we know that you have a more varied base of things that you can do. but don't put stuff that's not relevant to the job you're trying to get up in my face up front, because it's just confusing to me. I'm like, does this person know what they're trying to get a job doing? You know, I do a lot of portfolio review, and sometimes people will have examples of what they want to do, and then like a watercolor painting, and then this other thing, and then examples of what they want to do. And it's like, put all the examples of what you want to do on the front page, and then have other links that I can click on to see your other stuff. Because I do want to know that you can make watercolor paintings, because it shows that you have general artistic sensibilities and you're not over specialized, and I could have use for that. But definitely don't make it to where I can't tell what your specialty is or what type of job you're trying to get by muddling things together too much. It needs to be very hierarchical. And the first page needs to be something that the person that you're applying for the job, that they can look at it and get a very quick snapshot of your experience and be interested in it. You want to do that as quickly as possible. So the front page should just be that. And then you can have links that link to all of your other stuff so that we can tell that you make sweet watercolor paintings. But, you know, it's like in composition class in English, you know, topic sentence, topic paragraph, everything else, right? I need to, if I read the topic sentence and the topic paragraph and I'm not mostly picking up what you're putting down, I'm going to go back to work, so.
And I would also want to add on to that, like if you're in love with certain games, like if you love World of Warcraft and that's like Blizzard is your end-all be-all of companies to work at, try to include some of those pieces in your portfolio, either kind of fan art or just something that they could think of when they look at like, oh, this axe, I could totally put this axe actually in game at this point. Like they'll see that, they'll get excited about that. Know as much about my company as possible, whatever company that you're applying for. Most recruiters, which is usually like the first person that you're going to have to deal with in any recruitment process, is usually pretty stoked about where they work at, and they want to try to find people that are just as passionate about their games as they are. So just kind of being fully prepared, I guess, for that, being knowledgeable about it. And then here's kind of another example of just, when I was at CCP, I got this one where it's like, I want to get a position at Riot Games doing esports. That's awesome. We didn't do esports at CCP. We're not Riot Games when I was at CCP, so this was just kind of like one of the things where like obviously they applied there, they applied here as well. So it's just kind of like knowing your target audience, at least from that standpoint.
That's giving greater than 0 shits, I would say, is the real issue there.
Yes. Well, it's also I'm just gonna kind of spam my resume out everywhere, which you kind of want, at least, I would say at least target with like, here are my top 5 companies I want to work at. Start working and applying at those, making your resumes, cover letters super specific to those, and then kind of span it out everywhere else at that point, if it's not working. Before the interview, the last thing you want to do is just practice, practice, practice. Even me at this point, where I've been in the games industry now for about 6, 7 years now, I've been working for 12 years, I still get super nervous at interviews. I think it's just natural, everybody does. So I will go onto the internet, I'll print out like the 50 most asked interview questions, and I will sit there and read them, have my husband read them to me, I'll have my parents read them, I don't care, my kids, whatever. And I will just keep trying to, what makes sense, what's going to sell myself the best, and just always practicing. Even like that little, so tell me about yourself question, I will get stumped on that like 50% of the time. It's pretty bad. So I mean, just trying to like, what are your best strengths? What are the aspects that you want to share with people, and just kind of getting that down to memorize it.
Because the interview, well, you're doing during the interview.
It's next, yes.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. All right, next we're gonna move on to the interview stage of the recruitment process. First thing is be excited, kind of back to my point earlier. I really like where I work. I want to see that same excitement and passion from other people. So, and honestly, if you get to the point where you're going on site to an interview to actually meet with the staff, like that's usually pretty good. It's probably like a good 50% chance that you'll probably get the job at that point. So get excited that you've made it that far. A lot of people haven't. I usually probably screen out about half the people I speak to in the phone interview, then they take a test, then they go on another phone interview, then they get on site. So if you're at that point where you're physically on site, you're probably pretty golden. So just be happy.
Well, and trying to like get the conversation to where you're kind of in your comfort zone talking to somebody, like the less time you can spend being nervous and sweaty, the better, because that's going to make the other person uncomfortable, and you're going to like, are we going to be uncomfortable every day? Is he going to always be nervous and sweaty? I don't know. So you know, and I even have to do this the same way when I go in to talk to candidates. It's always weird and uncomfortable. But what you do is you just try to find a place where you can get into a common discussion that revolves around the, you know, position and like what that person's experience is like and what the job is like, and you can kind of get into a dialogue and be comfortable. And you just want to make an effort to do that so you can get out of the nervous and sweaty phase as quickly as possible.
Cool. Next, expect a test. I would say pretty much in all the functions at Hi-Rez, almost all the functions at Hi-Rez, we test everyone before they physically come on site. And it's not so much to see like how good of a programmer you are. It's kind of just like weeding out the programmers that maybe are just not as good. So really, we test everyone before they come on site. Even if you have 15 years of experience in programming, we'll still do that. So just kind of get used to it. Don't ever take it like personally, like, oh, they don't think I'm good enough. It's just a normal step now in the games industry recruitment process. And lastly, just also remember pretty much every time or every moment of your interview is kind of like a test. At most companies, I'll still even check in with the receptionist. I'm like, hey, how was that person when they like came into the office? Were they rude to you? Because that's going to be a sign that maybe that's not the kind of person that you want in your company. So really
What happened?
I don't know. Oh, where's my little mouse?
Look at your calendar. It's
I
so
know.
complicated.
I'm quite busy. Sorry. Oh, go away. Come on. Sorry. I don't know where it went.
Your presentation?
Yeah,
It's just gone?
it's just gone. Sorry.
That's no fun. I was reading your emails.
There you go. Yeah, so just really any person that you come in contact with, always just remember that this is always like a chance to impress people, always a chance to just show off why the company should be bringing you on staff. So, yeah. And next, ask questions during the interview. Try to listen to what people are saying, even if it's the same question for all the same people. Like, this is a chance for you to get to know the company as well. I know everyone's like always super excited of, okay, I'm actually on an interview at a game company, but you might find out that maybe this game company is not right for you, so you still want to kind of treat it as you're interviewing them as well. So always be asking questions, trying to learn as much about the company as possible. Cool. Next, after the interview, you want to take it constructively whenever you get feedback from companies. I had a friend that forwarded me this email that she got that said, "You will meet me one day, Lindsay, because I'm going to work in the games industry no matter what it takes. You are missing out on a chance of a lifetime." That's not the interview or the email that you want to send, because us HR people send this stuff around because we're surprised and shocked, and we kind of take mental note of these people.
Everyone does that, actually. And I know it's terrible and that people are terrible creatures, but like, we used to have a collection from back when we were starting up the company of demo reels that were really, 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 really frighteningly terrible, because they were just like frighteningly terrible, and it was just like, oh my God, look at this. He like morphs into a car. Like, why? Or like, what is with all the clowns or whatever? Like, you know, you have to imagine, you need to get other people to look at your stuff before it gets to anyone else. And yeah, in terms of being constructive, you know, the world is an objective place where objective things are happening. People are trying to solve problems and get people to do stuff. So if they don't feel like you can do the things that they need you to do, then they won't want you to do them. So, you know, not getting butt hurt is like a life skill, right? In all things, not just finding a job, but like, you know, having bad relationships or like whatever the thing is that you're having to deal with. Figuring out how to be constructive and learn from your experiences and try to improve on them and not take it personally and get worked up, because that really just doesn't help you grow. So, and we definitely, you know, by the time you get to the point where you need or have the job, you need to be pretty constructive, because you're going to sometimes get shut down, or you're going to have to go through a lot of revisions, and you just need to be able to deal with that. I've had people that we've hired that couldn't handle criticism or feedback, and you just get tired of dealing with it, and then they don't have the job now,
Yeah.
even after they got it. So just trying to be constructive in all things is, there's no amount, you cannot have too much of that.
Yeah. This is just another example where they're pretty much saying, like, I know more than what your team knows in regards to, I think it was a video position. So it's just another example.
Wait, I want to read it.
It was a person going for an entry-level position saying that he was much higher than an entry-level candidate and he knew more than our video team knew about making videos.
Yeah.
So it's just...
Don't be an asshole. I think that's another kind of just basic thing to understand.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, at least I've definitely seen friends in the games industry where they've applied for jobs, they didn't get it, they tried to sit there and like analyze the interview, just like, okay, I had a friend that interviewed at Blizzard, and he's like, what did I do wrong? What could I be doing better next time? Because that was like his dream job, to work at this company. And I want to say it took him about another 3 or 4 years working different games industry jobs before he finally got that job at Blizzard, just because he kept trying. He kept trying to take it to heart what he could be doing better. So, and that's kind of how you should take those. Most of the times recruiters won't actually give you feedback on why you were not selected. It's just for the safety of the company. But you can always just try to contact them offline for that, or just really try to analyze what you think might have gone wrong.
And if you need to do that, if you feel like something went wrong and it's driving you nuts, like, you just need to be insanely polite if you're going to ask, because that person is really busy, and if you make them uncomfortable at all, they'll just totally write it off. But if you really want to know, be very brief and say, hey, you know, I realize I didn't get the position. If there's any feedback you can give me on how I can do better or what made you decide against me, please let me know. That should be it. Don't say anything more than that. If they have time and if they're comfortable with it, they might give you some feedback. I mean, I know I've definitely done that to people that were, you know, polite and interested about what they need to do to improve. And I would send them honest feedback about what they need to do in order to grow. But if you're like, don't get on and start contacting them in social media and then do this, and it's like, oh, I've been stalking you and I've been trying to contact you in every way humanly possible. Like, the second you do anything like that, it gets weird and the person's like, oh, creepy stalker, how about I just pretend you don't exist? So, you know, you just have to understand all these people are busy. Everybody's got plenty of drama. They don't want more. If you need information, you just need to be super polite and don't get upset if they don't get back to you, because, you know, who knows? It may just be that they don't have time to. So
Always follow up with a thank you note. I know that seems very old school, but I can tell you that I've known many people have actually gotten jobs through this as well. All right, I didn't get it, they gave the job to someone else. Follow with something like, hey, I really appreciate your time. I know that you guys didn't think I was the right person this time, but I just want to remind you I have these skills. I've seen people still get contacted. Let's say the other candidate fell through. Maybe they opened up another position and you're the second person in line. It just kind of keeps you on their brain the more they see your name. And it's a nice, positive, warm and fuzzy.
right. Well, and we had some things, like we had that one guy, right, who we were going to give the job to, then suddenly declined the job, right? And that can happen. You know, who knows what percentage of the time that occurs. But if that does happen, then we're going to have to go back to other candidates, preferably that we interviewed. And if we were on the fence about 2 guys, we offered the job to one guy and then he didn't take the job, well, we're going to contact the next guy.
Yeah.
So following up and always being polite and cool, you know, it's not a guarantee of an opportunity, but it opens you up to be available to an opportunity if it presents itself.
Next, never give up. Kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about interviewing with great companies. You might not get it. Keep trying. I'm sure almost everyone I know has probably been rejected for a job at one time. I definitely have been. Chuk has worked at Hi-Rez ever since he was pretty much born, so he's never had that problem. But I mean,
This is not true.
it's normal. People get rejected, so just keep trying. And there's definitely jobs out there for everyone. So, and the games industry is always hurting for people. So.
And my philosophy on this is that if you continue to work on your portfolio materials and you continue to refine your resume and you continue to just try to do whatever it is, the thing that you're trying to do, like you're spending a great deal of your time, you know, evolving yourself towards this goal, you will eventually get the job. It may not be instantaneous. It could take you a year or 2 of messing around with your portfolio and producing better stuff, just keep doing the thing that you want to do and enjoy doing it, and eventually you will get there, right? It's really people that just don't want to put in the work that can't do it. That's really the only determining factor. Is really if you wanted enough to really continue to work on your portfolio and materials and advance them over time.
Yeah, to kind of build off that point, I definitely think, I mean, there's definitely people that, let's say, have graduated and they didn't get a job within like their first year out of school. Not the end of the world. We just kind of want to see when we're looking at your resume for those candidates that you're still working on like passion projects, working on other things, just kind of keep improving yourself and your portfolio. Because those are the people that we get really excited about, because you can kind of see what they're excited about themselves. And also that they're hardworking, they're hungry, that they're going to keep working at trying to get better to get that job.
I did that. I worked at the Japanese restaurant for like 2 years.
I can't hear you.
I worked at the Japanese restaurant for like 2 years, working on my portfolio and making demo reels and printing out flat books of my stuff and sending it out over and over again. And it took a period of time. And that's not the best time in your life, but you know, the tenacity is the necessary skill. And it will also help you out when you actually get the job anyway. So just persevere.
Cool. Then I kind of left the next half hour just for any kind of questions that people might have. If anybody has any. Go ahead.
So you guys talked about portfolios that investment,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm currently working on mine. I'm a programmer, and right now I have YouTube videos for projects I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
Are YouTube videos like a good way to go? Is there more I should be putting up there about my projects, or even like code samples?
I'm not a programmer, so I don't know about code samples, if that would be useful or not, but I think having YouTube videos of the project functioning and being very clear about what your contribution to it is, and making it be very clear and organized where, you know, people can see what the video is presenting and understand what your contribution to that is, I think that's totally valid.
Cool. I'd also say a GitHub account, just having any kind of code that you have as well on there is also exceedingly helpful for that. For most programmers, I don't think we normally see portfolios for them, but we usually do test, and we do like to see code samples prior to, if possible. Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead.
One thing I've noticed when researching jobs is that they often require degrees of varying kinds.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend doing if you are mostly self-taught?
As far as we're concerned, it depends what part of the field that you're interested in. Programming and other things is going to be harder. As far as the art is concerned, all the directors of all the art departments where I work, like nobody cares about your degree. We just want your portfolio to be good, and we want to be able to tell that when we bring you in, we can give you stuff to make, and you can make the stuff, and we can put it in the game. That's really all we care about. Like I said, I can't speak for the programmers, but in terms of art, you know, it's the facility at which we can plug and play your stuff. If you're using tools that show that you can produce something that I can use, I'm in. So.
Go ahead.
You know, I don't know, but I would say that that's probably pretty likely. I mean, I think if you can produce good sounding music and people are going to listen to it, and if they think it sounds awesome and it's inspiring and it feels like you could make something they could use, I'm sure that would be equally motivating.
Yeah, I can say we definitely have directors that would rather see mods than degrees, to be completely honest. So they just want to see actually completed work, or
We have, I wouldn't say it's the majority of people, it will be eventually, but for now, we have a lot of artists that didn't complete a college program to make video game assets. They just were polycount dudes, and they just kept building stuff. And if they have good looking stuff, then we're like, okay, we can bring this guy in, he can make the things.
Oh, go ahead.
So on a portfolio site, are blogs positive, negative, or like, how do you guys feel?
I mean, it could be interesting. I want to get to the information as quickly as possible and in the most organized fashion. if you're blogging and I can look at your thought process behind stuff and see things evolving over time, like that would be very useful. But I would make it the main page of your portfolio, right? Like you just can put a link there and link to your blog. And if I want to, you know, if I'm interested and I'm looking at your thought process, that would be valuable.
I like to see a blog just in case there's any kind of gaps in employment. Just kind of get like maybe a little spiel of like, hey, I was going to school during this time period, or I was working on this one personal project, mod, whatever, not during that time. So it's good from that standpoint, I would say. Cool. Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Internships are always exceedingly helpful because it kind of gives them at least a little bit of a taste of what they're getting into, and also helps them build like their network. But I think it's more helpful from that standpoint. I know at least our entry level positions, we call them associates at Hi-Rez, are 0 years of experience. Our mids usually come in around 2 to 3 years of experience. And I know there's definitely certain game companies that kind of specialize or seek out junior talent. Like I know Hi-Rez does. I know Rockstar is very keen on just finding people that are just fresh out of school. So those are probably like the more that ones that you would look for. Unfortunately, it's usually a lot of moving in those regards, but there are definitely studios out there that kind of purposely look for that. High Voltage, I think, is another one that's usually looking for people fresh out of school as well.
And from my personal standpoint, I definitely prefer to do that. I would rather have someone that has a lot of potential and less experience that I can just train them to do things the way that I want them done, and I don't have to deal with the person's weird many years of habits and all this other stuff. So a lot of people are cool with that and like to do it. It's really just making sure that, you know, you respect that these people gave you a chance that other companies probably wouldn't give you, and you make the most of that.
Oh, go ahead.
When searching for an internship, is there anything you recommend to do differently from when you were searching for a job, an entry-level job?
Do you have any thoughts or feedback?
I mean, I would say it's mostly the same. You're just not gonna, it's just a money thing, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of that, like, we have had many people that used to be interns that, you know, that person, what you want to do is get in there and become a valuable participant in the process, to where when your internship is about to be over, everybody is like, oh man, crap, like that sucks, that guy's not going to be here. Maybe we should just, can we just give him money now? Like,
Yeah.
that happens. Versus I have had guys where they've come in for an internship, and by the end of it, we're like, oh, thank God that was over. It's like, that guy's going back to school, and then he contacts me after school, and we're just like, ooh. So it's really getting in there and trying to be the useful, best, most productive person you can, and do the thing that you want to do. I find that the biggest fault in all of the interns is people that feel like they're too good for the internship. And man, that's a turnoff. So don't do that. But intern, if you can tank the not getting paid, it's the best way to get involved.
Yeah. Just try to be nice.
What have been some of the best examples of art portfolios that you've seen?
I don't exactly know how to quantify that. Like I said, the major things are prioritizing the specific skills that relate only to the job that you're trying to get, presenting those in a straightforward manner where I can get to them easily. Yeah, I mean, it's really just, you have to think about it in terms of the person who you're going to be applying for the job, what their perspective is going to be. And that the only thing they care about is finding another person that can solve their problems. So you always want to have that in mind when you're laying things out. And you know, like I said, using the English composition example, topic sentence, topic paragraph, body, right? Like, in order of importance.
I would also say, I mean, if you have a wide range of talents and you're like, I could totally be in animation or, I don't know, FX, whatever, it's okay to have 2 different portfolios. Like especially if you're also interested, maybe like in 2 different companies. If you want to go work on The Witcher 4, I guess that's coming out next, and you also want to go work at Disney Interactive, you don't want to use the same 2 portfolios for that. Like,
Yeah, just make another website.
yeah. So just try and make it specific. To
Or
the
I would
companies.
say, don't do that. Pick which thing you want to do more and just do that.
Have multiple labs now. Cool. Any other questions?
As you know, I'm interested in project management.
Mhm.
Is a company the size of Hi-Rez Studios, you know, use project managers on their production team, or how would a project manager fit into it?
We would call those producers. We have one head producer for each of our IPs, and then we have, I think on SMITE, we have 2 producers underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as teams grow, that's definitely something that will kind of grow with those teams.
And I don't know, in our personal setup, the producers and project manager type people tend to have been in some other aspect of the business and morphed into that role over time. So I don't know. In our particular example, I don't know that I could couch the best way to make that happen. We've had people come from programming and people come from QA, I guess, that have morphed into producers over time.
Yeah. I can see at least from other companies I've been at, there's people that would come in as entry-level producers and still work their way up. So I mean, there's definitely tracks for that, and there's also education schooling that you can go to for like that kind of focus as well. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
How frequently is who you know important in getting a job? And then also, how do you network without seeming like a stalker?
Yeah, stalkery
say-
networking is a thing, like for real.
I would
Polycount is a really good resource because there's a lot of people there that are industry professionals that are willing to look at your work and give you feedback on it. And if you continue to contribute, you will build relationships with those people. And if those people have jobs that are available that you could do, they will hit you up. So that's a really good way to kind of build relationships with industry professionals without having to be creepy stalker guy that keeps showing up at things that I'm at and, you know, following me around, which is just weird for everybody. So
I'd say networking is key. I've got my last 2 jobs in the games industry strictly from who I knew and just people that I would keep up with, going through 2 different sets of layoffs. It's huge. I know after my layoffs when I was at CCP, we had a lot of people go over to Riot, and I found out, because I was talking to some of the people over there, that they pretty much pulled all the other CCPers that were at Riot and said, who do you know that's still there or that left there and who is good? So you kind of want to maintain friendships with people that you worked with before. You want to maintain good relationships with these people, so they know to pass your name on in the future if that's something that you're looking to. I'd also say with internships, that's huge as well. You get in, try to meet as many people as possible, try to make good relationships with them as well, just so when they move on, the games industry is everyone kind of knows everybody after a while, and you go to Siege after a couple of years and you still see all the same people you saw last year, and it's kind of like just a much bigger network of Siege, I guess. So just trying to build those networks, it's huge. Mm-hmm.
You guys keep mentioning Polycount for artists and things like that, but is there any resource like that for people who want to be like writers for the game industry?
Oh, I have no idea.
That one, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not fully sure. I can say we definitely, at CCP, we did a lot of books through White Wolf Publishing, which had like a large network of like contract writers. So just trying to find other people that write in your genre and trying to at least network with them, I would say is a good start. If I were you, I'd reach out to other people on like LinkedIn from companies that you admire that are in those positions and say, hey, this is something I'm really interested in. Like, here's a piece, do you mind reading it and giving me feedback? And just kind of trying to start like a connection through that route. And then you can kind of see if maybe they would want to mentor you in the future, or maybe they can introduce you to other people, and then just try to see what you can get out of that.
Having game relevant writing samples, and yeah, finding other people that have experience to look at them. Because it would be the same way if you're needing somebody to fulfill a writing need. A lot of that stuff is primarily going to be contract. But the good thing about it is it's like art where it's very easy to evaluate, right? If you have good writing that people can look at that's relevant to making video games, you know, They're going to read it and go, oh, this guy could do this thing here.
Yes. We do. So far this year, we've gone to SCAD and Georgia Tech. We're definitely interested in doing more of that. So it's definitely something that we're looking into, yeah. So we're very big in entry-level candidates, so it's something that we get excited about. Yes.
Is 100% of your production on games in-house, or are there jobs that you outsource?
We have mostly, historically, we've done a little bit of outsourcing. Mostly right now, we're all doing it all internally, although I think we're about to start picking up some outsourcing on SMITE. There's a lot of market for it out there. And there's a lot of agencies that use people that are remote to produce assets for them that they then use to fulfill contracts. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of contract opportunity out there.
Cool. Go ahead.
In terms of programming, do employers see code camps as a good thing, bad thing,
I would say as a good thing. I mean, anything that's showing that you have like energy and you're working harder to improve your skill set, I would think they would be pretty stoked about. They're more going to be looking, if you don't have education at that point, yeah, they would be looking for something along those lines or code samples that you can provide. Yes, sir.
What do you guys tend to look for in like a level design portfolio as opposed to like an environmental art portfolio? Because would you want to see a level design necessarily? I mean, I would imagine you'd want to see basic modeling skills, but to what extent does that really?
I mean, all I know is from the last time we did one of these presentations, the level design guy was there. And he was saying having, you know, overviews of like a block out of how the level lays out and like this happens here or this is what this part of the level is for. You know, this is the context of the game that it's in. And the other thing that you can kind of do there is like, so in terms of competitive stuff or like gameplay functionality levels like Counter-Strike or Quake or whatever, that's very hard to kind of describe. But building a narrative experience is something that you can do using UDK or Unity or whatever. And making an experience that has flow and recording a video of it or having it where somebody can play it would be valuable. Narrative experience is good because anybody can look at that and see whether or not it feels compelling to them. So it can kind of exist in a little bit of a vacuum and anybody can kind of get an impression out of it. If you're talking about more competitive stuff, I can't, but a level designer can look at a layout and tell whether it's good and whether it has all the requirements that it would need to be fulfilling, like in terms of an competitive FPS or whatever. So I think it's kind of, those are the two, poles of that experience is like, hey, I'm doing a competitive thing. I need to just show the layout of the whole level and how it relates to, people making tactical decisions against each other. And then the narrative experience, which is like a thing you can make a video out of and show people.
Yes.
With YouTube videos, how you all mentioned how we should basically show off what we did in projects. How would you suggest going about that as opposed to there was a group project with 5 people doing it, we posted one video. We need to take that video and come back and break it down as to our part and kind of narrate over the video, or how would you suggest?
I would say if it's something that you can easily break down, like if you did one level out of a multi-level game, then just kind of highlighting that one level in the video. Let's say if you're doing level design, but let's say if it's more programming or if you provided all the environment or assets, I would just use the one same video and then maybe just do like a small little breakout at the bottom saying like, hey, these were my contributions. Here are the rest of my team. This was their contributions as well.
Like if you program the way a weapon worked, you could have a video of the weapon and then you could show more details about how that functions. If you've animated a rabbit, you can show the rabbit running in the game context, and then you can have some specific, oh, this is a spin around of the model or whatever. Like trying to show whatever it is in context and then immediately afterwards showing process and, just like focusing specifically on the thing that you made and what your involvement and thought process was, would be good.
Yes.
So, with your internships, do you do that on a rolling basis, and are they treated more like full-time positions? Like, do you work 40 hours a week, or can you do it while you're still in school?
For our internships, right now we just have summer internship programs. So we're going to actually post ours for our 2016 summer, hopefully probably at the end of next November, or end of this November. And they usually work about 40 hours per week. And I would say workload is pretty standard to any of our entry-level people. So you're going to be doing, let's say, in FX, I assume, the same as any of our entry-level FX employees would be doing. Ish.
Ish. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the last time we used an effects intern, we had a lot of just kind of a great volume of low-level work that we needed to kind of get done, and so we kind of gave it to that guy and kind of oversaw him producing it. So yeah, it's generally things like that. Like everybody kind of, I think, has their idea of what kind of intern level tasks are going to be, and then they're going to distribute them to you. And if you can really shine at your intern level tasks, then you have a good chance at just becoming an associate person.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you guys only offer internships to students?
Nope. We offer it to people that recently graduated as well.
Okay.
Yes?
Kind of related to that, for people transferring industries,
Mm-hmm.
if they have a decent amount of experience in other industries,
Mhm.
is that okay if they're looking at an associate position?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you worked at, like, let's say, like government, whatever not, or high tech or something, you're a programmer there, we would definitely take those years of work into consideration. So, as long as they're, I guess, applicable. So, yeah. Yes.
So more on that note, if you were given the choice between somebody who was like a specialist in just programming,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody who was, say, a cross-discipline person, that they were very good at programming, but also had some artistic skills that they developed, like writing and such, do y'all have any preference, or does it just depend on the situation?
I would say you're going to apply for one of those two jobs and get one of those two jobs. Like she was saying earlier, indie studios, there's a lot of opportunity for people to fan out, but we have a programming department and we have an art department, and people are not in two departments, right? Like your tasks are so specific that aside from making shaders or whatever, if you're an artist, your programming experience is not going to be directly applicable.
But we do have tech artists, which are really hard to find. So that's a good field for people to go into, and that's pretty much a programmer that likes art, that helps make tools for art, and we need them always. So we do. Yes.
So for a programmer, if you're looking at previous work, would you prefer to see like a full completed game, or more like a bunch of tech demos of just ideas? If there's a preference.
I mean, your game is really just sort of a combination of many pieces of tech, right? So, I mean, solving individual problems. If, for example, I always use this example, our primary tech artist made a tool where you could take a model and put feathers all over it, and it would analyze the model and figure out how the feathers were going to work, and then it set up this system so that when the thing moved around, the feathers would not overlap, right? And he didn't have a context that he was using that in, like it wasn't for a video or a movie or whatever, it was just his feather demo. But when you saw that he could do that, you were like, oh, well, I mean, he can solve all kinds of problems, clearly, right? So yeah, that really all that is, it's just proof of concept that the person can look at it and tell what things you're going to be able to do.
I'll also say when it comes to like projects that you guys might have done at school, anyone that actually continues working on those like after they graduate and possibly ship these out in the real world, I feel like that's also a really big win as well. It's something that we get pretty excited about. So, yes.
You were saying that they break down jobs into very specific tasks, right? Can you describe area, I guess, like how specific tasks you
I mean, I'm not saying that we have guys that just build chairs, right? It's like you're you know, if you're a modeler, you're an environmental modeler or you're a character modeler. If you're, you know, animators generally animate characters, riggers rig anything that has skeletons in them. We have gameplay programmers and we have systems programmers and we have UI programmers. And we have the mysterious platform programmers. So it's more departmentalized, and then anything within that department will handle tasks of a particular type, right? Gameplay programmers are not focused on rendering. They're focused on making character abilities and making things function. Platform deals with, you know, server-side stuff and networking and cross-platform, making the game work on Xbox and PC. You know, so it's just things are kind of grouped into those different high-level task clusters, and then the individual things you do could be anything that falls under that umbrella.
Yeah, and again, I think that also goes back to the size of the company, because I worked at Xavient where the development team was about 60 people. We didn't have riggers, we didn't have graphics programmers, like everyone was a little bit more generalized. And then I worked at Blue Mammoth, which was an 11-person development team, and they just had like 3 programmers, and then like everybody on the art team were illustrators, and like they weren't, I guess, as specialized.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah. Cool. This was kind of a little breakdown of the list, I guess, if that helps. So, okay. You can come up later for it, that's fine. Yes?
Do you offer summer internships for like graduating high school students, or are your internships mostly for college students?
Our preference is college, but we definitely have had high school interns. So it's really just going to come down to who the best candidate is. We've even hired entry-level people fresh out of high school, so it really just depends on their aptitude and their skill set. Yes.
If I'm applying to like multiple entry-level jobs at like big studio or something,
Uh-huh.
and I regularly apply to multiple entry-level jobs, and like how much is it like, oh, she really wants this job, and how much is like, oh, this is too much, we already expect you.
I would always say if you want to work at that studio, keep applying. I would suggest though that if you didn't make it one time, and let's say you didn't get called by the recruiter, that's usually a sign that maybe you need to relook at your resume, your portfolio, or maybe just contact the recruiter and say like, hey, I've applied multiple times, I've never heard back, what can I do differently to possibly get a chance? Because maybe you're having like a portfolio that's just way off the mark of what we're looking for, or maybe you've done some stuff at school that is not in your resume that might be super helpful to know. I would just reach out to them and see what you could do better and just keep trying. Yeah. Yes.
Related to that, what's the best way to contact the recruiter?
LinkedIn, I would say. You definitely don't want to go off like Facebook. That's a little too personal, but I would say either off Twitter. Most companies will have either like a careers or a talent or something Twitter feed, or just contacting the company's Twitter feed, or trying to go on LinkedIn and saying, okay, it's Hi-Rez Studio, who is a recruiter. Okay, it's Scarlet. Just contacting her then through there. Yes.
What do you think are some essential pieces that need to be in a concept portfolio?
Depends what you're interested in concepting. I mean, really, we're just, you know, we definitely have people that have a wide variety of pieces. You probably want to have stuff that kind of runs the gamut of different themes. And depending on whether your focus is character or environmental or both, you know, the more focused it is, the easier a time you are going to have a job to be able to get a job that's very specific. But if you're just kind of contracting, or you want to work at a smaller place that does things that are more broad, having a more variety of samples would be better. So you know, in the case of concept art, the different portfolios are going to have different levels of value to different studios depending on what they do and how specialized they are. So.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
I know not all companies have updated internship positions, like listings. I'm wondering if you're
No, I mean, I would always contact. There's always a possibility that they might not do internships, but they got contacted. This person seemed eager and really excited, very passionate, and they might be willing to give you a chance. You never know. It can't hurt to ask. They could also at least point you in the right direction of, yeah, we have them, but we might not be posting them until this date. So you can kind of at least gauge a little bit better when to expect that. So it never hurts to ask in those situations. Cool. Any other questions? All right, well, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you guys. Yeah.